By World Wire News International Desk, in a renewed wave of violence, Israeli forces launched fresh airstrikes across Gaza on May 13, 2025, just hours after the release of Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old Israeli-American soldier held hostage by Hamas since October 2023. The attack marks a continuation of the deadly conflict that has devastated the Gaza Strip and left thousands of civilians dead, wounded, and displaced. While Alexander's release, brokered through diplomatic efforts involving the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, was welcomed by Israeli and U.S. officials, it did not trigger a ceasefire. Instead, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated that military operations would persist until all hostages are freed and Hamas's military infrastructure is dismantled. Targeted strikes and rising civilian toll. According to multiple reports, Israeli airstrikes targeted densely populated areas, including a significant strike on the Nasser medical complex in Khan Yunis. Among the casualties was journalist Hassan Esler, a widely respected Palestinian photojournalist known for covering the war's human toll. At least one other person was also killed in the attack on the hospital compound. Eyewitnesses reported chaos as families fled the area, fearing further strikes. Health workers described the scenes as apocalyptic, with children and the elderly among the victims. Rescue teams were seen digging through rubble with bare hands as medical supplies continued to run out. The renewed assault has brought new urgency to humanitarian appeals. The World Health Organization, WHO, has raised alarms about the ongoing blockade's impact on children's health in Gaza. The organization warned that continued restrictions on food, water, fuel, and medical aid are creating catastrophic conditions, with long-term consequences for child development, public health, and overall stability in the region. Diplomatic movements amid escalation. The release of Edan Alexander had been seen by some observers as a potential window for de-escalation. Instead, it has triggered a sharp escalation of violence, prompting criticism from rights groups and humanitarian organizations. U.S. officials confirmed that Alexander's freedom was secured as part of a limited humanitarian corridor arrangement, not a broader ceasefire agreement. President Donald Trump, who personally welcomed Alexander's return, stated that the U.S. remains committed to securing the release of other hostages but refrained from calling for an immediate ceasefire. Meanwhile, Hamas has accused Israel of using the hostage release as political cover for intensifying bombardments, particularly in southern Gaza where displaced civilians have been told to seek refuge. A worsening humanitarian catastrophe since the conflict reignited in October 2023, over 52,000 Palestinians have reportedly been killed, according to data from local health authorities and corroborated by international monitors. With most of Gaza's infrastructure either destroyed or critically damaged, more than 1.8 million people are now displaced, living in overcrowded shelters, tents, or the open air. Recent analysis by humanitarian agencies warns that over 500,000 people are facing famine-like conditions, with blockades on food and aid convoys preventing life-saving assistance from reaching affected areas. The United Nations has described the situation as a man-made catastrophe that could escalate into an irreversible humanitarian collapse. Hospitals continue to operate without electricity, water, or basic medical supplies. Makeshift clinics and underground shelters now serve as operating rooms, with doctors forced to choose who lives and who dies due to a lack of resources. Global reactions and calls for accountability. International reaction to the resumed strikes has been swift and divided. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have condemned both sides for violations but particularly highlighted the disproportionate impact of Israeli airstrikes on civilians. Calls for a UN-brokered ceasefire have intensified, with several nations urging the Security Council to intervene before the situation becomes beyond repair. Yet political divisions within the UN and competing geopolitical interests continue to delay any meaningful resolution. Meanwhile, in major cities around the world, Protesters have taken to the streets demanding an immediate ceasefire, humanitarian access to Gaza, and international accountability for war crimes. In Washington, London, and Berlin, demonstrators held vigils for the victims, including journalists, medics, and children killed in recent days. What lies ahead? The resumption of military operations following Alexander's release has dashed hopes for a pause in the violence. Analysts warn that the coming days may witness an intensification of fighting, particularly as Israeli forces pursue remaining hostages and Hamas vows retaliation. As the conflict enters its 8th month, the humanitarian toll continues to mount, while political solutions remain as elusive as ever. For Gaza's civilians, the latest airstrikes are a painful reminder that even the glimmer of hope can be swallowed by the roar of warplanes. Follow World Wire News for ongoing coverage of the Gaza-Israel conflict and breaking developments around the world.